A customer signs paperwork for a $35,000 sedan. The dealership just made $600. Then the finance manager offers an extended warranty for $2,200. The customer says yes. The dealership just made $1,300. Same transaction, same customer, same 10 minutes. But the second product generated more than twice the profit of the car itself. The vehicle brings the customer into the building, but it's not where the dealership makes its living. To understand how car dealerships actually work, you need to separate what's in the showroom from what pays for the showroom, and then examine what happens when that second business stops working. The average new car dealership in the United States generates around $50 million in annual revenue. That sounds like a printing press. But when you isolate gross profit, what remains after paying the manufacturer for inventory, the dealership keeps approximately $4 to $5 million. Then come the costs: real estate, salaries, advertising, utilities, insurance, legal fees, floor plan interest. Operating profit for a well-run dealership typically lands between 2% and 4% of revenue. That means a $50 million dealership might net $1 to $2 million. Respectable, but nowhere near what the revenue figure suggests. And here's the part most people miss. Almost none of that profit comes from selling new cars. The new car department, the part with the showroom, the lot, the inventory everyone assumes is the business, often operates near break-even. In some cases, it loses money. Let's follow one transaction. A customer buys a new vehicle with a manufacturer's suggested retail price of $40,000. The dealership paid the factory roughly $37,000 for that car. So there's $3,000 of margin available, right? Not exactly. First, the customer negotiated. They didn't pay $40,000. They paid $38,500. Margin just dropped to $1,500. Then the dealership offered a rebate the manufacturer provided to move inventory. That rebate went to the customer, cutting another $1,000 from the dealer's take. Margin: $500. The salesperson earns a commission. The sales manager gets a cut. The dealership spent money advertising to generate the lead. By the time those costs are deducted, the dealership might clear $200 to $800 on the sale, depending on the brand, the vehicle, and how long it sat on the lot, accruing interest charges. That's a 1% to 2% margin on a $40,000 asset that the dealership had to borrow money to keep in inventory. This is where the model starts to reveal itself. The car is not the profit center, it's the credential. It gets the customer into a financing conversation. Once the sale price is settled, the customer meets the finance manager. This is presented as a paperwork formality. In reality, it's the second transaction, and the more profitable one. The finance manager offers a menu: extended warranties, gap insurance, paint protection, fabric protection, tire and wheel coverage, prepaid maintenance plans, anti-theft etching, sometimes even credit life insurance. The customer just spent 30 minutes negotiating the price of the car. They're exhausted. The finance manager is friendly, consultative, not pushy, and the products sound reasonable. An extra $40 a month to protect a $40,000 investment. Here's what's happening financially. The dealership buys that extended warranty from an underwriter for $800. They sell it to the customer for $2,200. Gross profit, $1,400. The paint protection costs the dealership $150 in materials and labor. It's sold for $800. Profit, $650. Gap insurance, coverage that pays the difference if the car is totaled and the loan exceeds the vehicle's value, costs the dealership around $300. It sells for $900. Profit, $600. If the customer finances through the dealership receives a commission from the lender, often 1% to 2% of the loan amount, sometimes structured as a markup on the interest rate. On a $35,000 loan, that's another $350 to $700. Add it up. The dealership made $600 on the vehicle. It made $2,500 to $3,500 in the finance office. The car unlocked the transaction. The finance products supplied the margin. This isn't a trick. It's the business model. Dealerships exist in a structure with brutal economics. They don't manufacture anything. They can't control the product, the supply, or the price. Manufacturers set the wholesale cost. Customers can see competing prices online before they ever visit the lot. The dealership's negotiating position on vehicle price has been deteriorating for 20 years. What they do control is the relationship after the price is settled, and that's where the money moved. Nationally, finance and insurance income accounts for roughly 25% to 30% of a dealership's total gross profit, despite representing a tiny fraction of revenue. In many stores, F&I is the difference between profit and loss. But there's a second profit engine, and it operates on an even longer time horizon: the service department. When a customer finances a car and buys an extended warranty, the dealership has now created a multi-year relationship. That customer will return for oil changes, brake pads, tire rotations, recall work, and eventually repairs not covered under warranty. Service departments operate with fundamentally better economics than vehicle sales. A dealership might charge $150 for an oil change and tire rotation that costs $40 in parts and fluids. Labor is billed at $120 to $180 per hour. The technician is paid $25 to $35 of that. There's no inventory financing cost. There's no negotiation. And there's repeat demand. For luxury brands, the service department can generate 40% to 50% of the dealership's total gross profit. The vehicles in the service bays aren't just generating revenue. They're generating high-margin, recurring revenue with no factory invoice to pay. The showroom sells the first visit. The service bay sells the next 30, so now the picture is complete. A dealership is not primarily a car retailer. It's a finance origination business with a high-margin service arm, supported by a low-margin product that creates customer access. The new car is the credential. Finance and service are the business. But this structure creates three dangerous dependencies. The first, manufacturer control. Dealerships don't own their business model. They license it. The franchise agreement gives them the right to sell a specific brand in a specific territory, but the manufacturer controls inventory allocation, warranty reimbursement rates, rebate programs, and facility requirements. If the manufacturer decides to reduce inventory shipments, the dealership has fewer cars to sell and fewer chances to generate finance income. If the manufacturer lowers warranty reimbursement rates, service department profit falls. If the manufacturer demands a facility upgrade, new signage, new showroom design, new equipment, the dealer funds it. The dealer owns the real estate and employs the staff, but the manufacturer controls the economics. And manufacturers are starting to question whether they need the dealership model at all. The second dependency, floor plan financing. Dealerships don't pay cash for inventory. They borrow each vehicle from a lender, usually a captive finance arm of the manufacturer or a large bank. This is called floor plan financing. Every car on the lot accrues interest daily, often at rates tied to the prime rate, plus a spread. In a low-rate environment, floor plan interest might cost the dealership $50 to $100 per vehicle per month. Manageable. But when interest rates rise, that cost can double or triple. A dealership holding 150 vehicles at an average cost of $35,000 each has $5.25 million in borrowed inventory. At 7% interest, that's nearly $31,000 per month in carrying costs before a single car is sold. If inventory moves quickly, the cost is absorbed. But if demand softens or if the manufacturer overships vehicles the market doesn't want, the dealership is paying interest on assets it can't sell at a price that covers the accumulated cost. The car might have arrived with $1,500 of potential margin. 3 months later, after interest, aged vehicle depreciation, and price cuts to move it, that margin is gone. The dealership's most visible asset, the inventory, is also a liability that costs money every day it remains unsold. The third dependency, the finance products themselves. Extended warranties, gap insurance, and service contracts are not infinite profit centers. Regulators are scrutinizing them. Customers are becoming more informed, and the shift toward electric vehicles threatens the entire service model. An electric vehicle has no oil to change, no transmission to service, no exhaust system to replace. Brake pads last longer because of regenerative braking. The service department revenue that subsidized the dealership for decades starts to disappear. Tesla demonstrated that a car company can sell directly to customers, eliminating the dealership entirely. Other manufacturers are watching. Some are experimenting with agency models, where the dealership displays the car, but the manufacturer controls pricing and handles the transaction. The dealer becomes a showroom host, not a retailer. If that model spreads, the finance office, the dealership's most profitable room, goes with it. In 2008 and 2009, during the financial crisis, more than 2,000 dealerships in the United States closed. Sales collapsed. Floor plan lenders tightened credit. Manufacturers, facing bankruptcy, cut franchises to reduce their own costs. The dealerships that survived weren't necessarily the ones that sold the most cars. They were the ones with the strongest service departments, the best finance penetration, and the lowest debt. Revenue didn't save them. Margin structure did. Here's the contrast. A high-performing dealership sells 100 cars a month. Vehicle gross profit, $1,200 per unit. Total, $120,000. Finance penetration rate, 75%. Average F&I profit per transaction, $2,000. Total, $150,000. Service department, 1,200 repair orders per month at an average gross profit of $180 per ticket. Total, $216,000. Monthly gross profit, $486,000. Now consider a weak dealership that sells the same 100 cars. Vehicle gross profit, $800 per unit because they're discounting aggressively to move inventory. Total, $80,000. Finance penetration, 50% because the sales team views it as optional. Average F&I income, $1,200. Total, $60,000. Service department, undersized, understaffed, slow. 600 repair orders at $140 average profit. Total, $84,000. Monthly gross profit, $224,000. Same vehicle sales, less than half the profit. The difference isn't the cars, it's everything that happens after the car is sold. So what is a car dealership? It's a business that displays a product it barely profits from in order to sell financial products with high margins and create service relationships with recurring revenue. The showroom is the storefront. The finance office and service bay are the business. But that business depends on manufacturers who are exploring whether they need dealerships at all, on borrowed inventory that costs more when interest rates rise, and on service demand that disappears as the product itself changes. A dealership can have a full lot, a busy showroom, and rising revenue. But if the finance department weakens, if the service bay's empty, or if the manufacturer changes the model, the visible success can collapse faster than most people expect. The cars are not the business. They are the way into the business. And the real question is how long that door remains open.